What the is happening with MMOs? We give them our money, we give them our time, and in return, they give us empty servers and cash shops. The entire industry has become a total insult to the people who support it. We have spent the last 2 decades chasing a ghost, and I think I am finally done running. I have been playing MMOs since the early 2010s, and they have ruined every other genre for me, because the best kind of game in my opinion is an MMO, because there is nothing else like it. The communities are the best part. Just being able to play a game with strangers who are like-minded is incredible. It's just a bunch of nerds coming together to play a game they love, and there is nothing else like it in any other type of game. I am always on the search for the next great MMO, hoping that the new releases will finally be my forever home. But if you're watching this video in 2026, you already know that the dream feels dead. We just got the news about Ashes of Creation shutting down development, and it feels like the final nail in the coffin for the Kickstarter era of gaming. We spent years hoping that crowdfunded projects would save us from the corporate greed of big studios, but now we are left with nothing but broken promises. So for this video, I want to talk about the current state of MMOs, where we are, where it all started to go wrong, and why we can't break out of these old classics like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2. We need to figure out why the industry keeps crashing and burning, and if there is any hope left for gamers like us. To understand why we are stuck, we have to look at the bodies piled up in the corner. The last 2 decades are filled with games that have tried to be the next big thing and failed miserably. One of the biggest disasters was the day before. The reason that game failed went beyond just simple bugs. The developers used completely fake marketing to scam players into buying an extraction shooter disguised as an open world MMO. It destroyed player trust in a way that the industry still hasn't recovered from. Then you have the classic complexity trap victims like Crowfall and WildStar. Crowfall prioritized complex throne war systems over responsive combat, making the game feel like a chore rather than a battle. WildStar made a similar mistake by catering exclusively to hardcore raiders. They built a beautiful world full of personality, but they locked the best content behind a punishing attunement grind that drove the casual audience away immediately. We also need to remember the phantom pain of vaporware like EverQuest Next, and now Ashes of Creation. These games promise us revolutionary technology like destructible voxel worlds or evolving nodes. Ashes of Creation hurts the most because we waited for over 10 years for Intrepid Studios to deliver on their Kickstarter promises. The project ultimately collapsed because the scope became too large for the team to manage effectively, leaving us with a permanent alpha test instead of a game. And now we are watching New World prepare to turn its lights off next year. New World is the perfect representation of having unlimited budget with no clear direction. They pivoted from a survival game to an MMO in the last second, resulting in an endgame that simply couldn't handle the demands of large-scale warfare. When Western developers fail, we usually look towards the East for salvation, but that has its own set of problems. We keep seeing these massive Korean MMOs that look incredible graphically, but fall apart when they hit the Western market. Take Throne and Liberty as a recent example. The game looks stunning, but it flopped in the West because the core gameplay loop relied heavily on whale culture. In many Eastern markets, gaming happens in PC bangs, where social status is tied to in-game power, making pay-to-win mechanics much more socially acceptable. Western players generally reject this model, viewing it as a breach of competitive integrity. Lost Ark suffered from a similar cultural disconnect. It launched with huge numbers, but it required players to treat the game like a second job. The homework grind required logging in daily on multiple characters just to stay relevant. Eventually, real players burnt out from the repetition, leaving the servers overrun with bots, farming gold for the few remaining whales. We also cannot ignore the overwhelming UI clutter and confusing systems that plague these titles. You log in and are immediately bombarded with flashing red dots, daily login rewards that cover half the screen, and of course, the cash shop. This design actively treats players like a gambler in a casino. It ignores the fantasy of being a hero in a story and constantly reminds you that you are just a monetization metric. So if all these new games are failing, why do the old ones refuse to die? It really comes down to one simple thing, and that's community investment. I envy the way people talk about World of Warcraft. I didn't start playing seriously until a few years ago, and while I love the game, it feels very antisocial to me. Most players are already established and have their guilds, so it feels like breaking into a private club that has existed for 20 years. But that club is exactly why WoW survives. People stay in WoW because leaving that game means leaving their friends and a decade of social history. I had a similar experience with the Elder Scrolls Online. I started a guild with some online friends back in 2021. For a while, while, it was magic, but sadly, that game strayed too far from what we enjoyed, and the guild all left the game along with the majority of the player base. This is the tragedy of the modern MMO player. We are constantly trying to recreate that lightning in a bottle moment where a fresh community forms, but the games just aren't good enough to hold us together anymore. So is it all just doom and gloom? Not entirely. Even though the graveyard is full, there are a few sparks in the dark that we should keep an eye out on in 2026. First, we have the visual stunners like Chrono Odyssey and Arcade Chronicles. These games look absolutely incredible in Unreal Engine 5. However, we must remain skeptical of pretty graphics masking shallow gameplay. For these games to survive, they need to prove that they aren't just pretty casinos designed to drain our wallets. Then there's the old school renaissance with projects like Monsters and Memories. It's an indie project that is unapologetically trying to bring back that classic EverQuest friction. It's clunky and difficult by design, but at least it has a distinct soul. We also have Stars Reach, led by Ralph Koster, the designer behind Star Wars Galaxies. This game prioritizes the feeling of actually living in a world rather than just clearing flashy raids. If you miss the days when players built the economy and the cities, this MMO is going to be your best bet. And finally, we have the Riot MMO. They went dark a few years ago to reset development, but they remain the only company with the budget and lore depth to genuinely challenge World of Warcraft. If that game ever actually comes out, it will be the biggest event in gaming history. But for now, it is just a ghost story we tell ourselves to keep the hope alive. These projects represent a diverse range of philosophies, from high-fidelity blockbusters to niche indie passion projects. This variety is exactly what the genre needs to finally break free from the stagnation of the last decade. However, potential alone is not enough to save the industry. For any of these titles to actually succeed where others have failed, they must adhere to 3 fundamental pillars of design. So what do these future games need to do to avoid ending up on the failure list? Well, first, they need to respect our time. The average MMO player is in their 30s now. We have jobs, kids, and bills. We can't play for 12 hours a day just to keep up. A great modern MMO needs to make us feel like we achieved something whether we played for 30 minutes or 6 hours. Second, they need to stop forcing social features and start building social worlds. You can't just put a guild finder button in the UI and call it a community. You need to give us reasons to talk to each other again, whether that's dangerous open worlds where we need help or player-driven economies where we need to trade. And lastly, please, for the love of gaming, just give us a fair business model. We will happily pay a subscription fee if it means everyone is on an equal playing field. The moment you let someone buy power with the credit card, you are destroying the integrity of the entire game. If a developer can just nail those 3 things, they will create a long-lasting community that is willing to spend tons of money on their game, making it their next forever home. Ultimately, the state of MMOs in 2026 is a reflection of an industry that has lost its soul. We don't play these games for the high-resolution textures or daily login rewards. We play them to feel like part of something that's bigger than ourselves. The technology has never been better, yet the worlds have never felt more empty. We started this video asking what happened to the dream. The truth is that the dream is still alive, but it's currently being held hostage by spreadsheets and engagement metrics. The ball is entirely in the developer's court now. We are still here, passionate and ready to log in, but we are done accepting mediocrity. The next great MMO does not need to reinvent the wheel. It just needs to give us a reason to spin it together. And until that happens, we will keep the campfires burning in the old worlds, waiting for a new horizon that is actually worth the journey. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments which dead game you missed the most. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. This has been Darth Trooper Gaming, and I will see you in the next video.